Hey guys, this is JBH. Welcome to the newest episode of the PROGBOX. The PROGBOX is the show where I take records, box sets, CDs, whatever, out of this little box behind me that I call the PROGBOX. Everything in there is progressive rock, progressive metal, krautrock, progressive. I might have said progressive pop already. I don't know. This is the show where I basically take those out and talk about them. Tends to be a large focus on the classic era. Um, or just something that is up to 20 years old at this point. That's most of what's in there. Anyway, um, and the classics are a huge focus today because the band I'm going to be talking about is Jethro Tull. Jethro Tull is one of my favorite bands of all time, one of the greatest bands in Prague, and I've one of the first bands I started collecting when I started collecting records. Period. And I've been wanting to do a show just kind of showcasing what albums I do have from them. I don't have their entire catalog, but I'm hoping to hoping to quell that in the years to come. So I've been really looking forward to talking about this. And like I said, I don't have all their albums, so I'm not going to be talking about all their albums, but I'm going to talk about what I do have. And this is only the first installment. I'm still collecting. I'm going to keep getting more Jethro Tull albums, and over time, I'm going to talk more about the albums I get in the future. So the plan is I'm going to go through the albums that I do have in order of release, and I'm going to be basically just telling you a little bit about the album. But first, before I do that, excuse me, got to itch my ear real quick. um, Before I get into that, I'm just to say a little bit about Jethro Tull. I imagine if you're watching this video, you know what they sound like, or you have an idea of them. But just in case, Jethro Tull, they're a rock band. They were formed in Blackpool, England in 1967. They started out as kind of a British blues rock focused band, but they had a bit of a jazz fusion edge to their sound that kind of made them a little bit unique. And the fact that they're the the leader of the band and the just kind of the face of the band overall, Ian Anderson, acoustic guitar player, sometimes electric guitar player, vocalist, flautist, very well known for his incredible flute playing. That flute kind of gave them a unique twist to the rock going on at the time. Just gave them a sound that made them basically. But over time, they got rid of that that very blues focused sound, and they added in elements of folk, especially hard rock and classical, and just and jazz as well. They kept the jazz in there a bit, and they kind of just made their own unique footprint in the world of progressive music, and they're known very well for that. And without further ado, let's go ahead and start talking about the albums. Like I said, I'm going to be talking about them in order of release, the ones I have, and let's get started. So the first album I have here, I have a copy of Stand Up. Stand Up was their second album that was released in, again, I'm going to check myself. I'm not even going to allow myself to make the mistake of getting it wrong. It came out in 1969. Stand Up is one of the first albums I heard, not the first album, I'll get to that in a minute, but one of the first albums I heard from them when I was getting into them. Uh, Stand Up is the album where they started adding in more elements of what would make them a just an out and out progressive rock band. There was a larger focus. There's a larger focus on folk on this than there was on their first album. There's a larger focus on some of the more hard rock tendencies. Like I said, there's not a lot of blues on here. There's a little bit of blues. The first song on here, "New Day Yesterday," is I would say an out and out pretty bluesy rock song. But other than that, there's not too much else blues that you're going to find on here. It was also the first album that had Martin Barre, who would go on to be the only other constant member up until their most recent reunion album, even though it's more of a Ian Anderson solo album, but we won't get into that right now. So here's kind of the inside, kind of nice. I really like how it looks. Nothing special about the vinyl itself. Like I said, this is an older pressing, but so funny story about this vinyl that I got. We have a thrift store here where I live, and when I went in just looking around at stuff, I did not have a big record collection yet. I maybe had like 4 or 5 records. This was quite a few years ago. I'd say probably about coming up on like 6, 7 years ago. And at this point, I had listened to some Jethro Tull and I'd already been becoming a fan. But this was the first Tull record I actually got a hold of, and I didn't even realize it at the time. So I got this. There's a little record spot in this thrift shop. It's a massive thrift shop, and I went over to it and I was flipping through. They had framed records. I did not know that there were actual records in the frame because they were like $10 or $15 each or something like that. It probably wasn't that much. It was probably, I'd say it was like $8 to $10 was how much they were. Well, this was in there, and I just bought it thinking it was like, oh, cool, like a framed thing of Jethro Tull's stand-up album. Awesome. I didn't actually know because I don't know if I'm just an idiot, but I didn't actually know that the record was in the frame until one day I don't even remember what I was doing, but I decided to take the frame down and I was going to see if I could frame another record I had. At this point, I had already been collecting some more records. This thing sat in a frame for probably about a year. And I undid the frame and then I took it out and realized, oh my gosh, I actually had this album the entire time. So, yeah, I'm a freaking moron. But, yeah, so that's how I've had the album, and I've, again, had it ever since, obviously. And I was super ecstatic because I was like, oh my gosh, I got this album for like $8 or $10 or however much it was. And again, that's probably not super expensive, but that's probably not super crazy or anything like that because, I mean, I don't know if this album is real hard to find or super expensive or whatever, but regardless, I was very happy to have it. And it's actually one of my favorite albums from them, despite the fact that it's only their second. And that just, I think, tells you how much of how incredible of a band they are, even this early in their career. And I know this album is considered an influence by people like Eddie Vedder and stuff like that, which is weird because I don't really hear a lot of Tull. At least not in Pearl Jam, but in some of his solo stuff, I guess I could hear a little bit of like a folky Tull influence, but not too much. Regardless, I'm going off on a tangent now, but yeah, this album is fantastic. And I mentioned New Day yesterday. That's not my favorite song on the album. It's easily it's easily Nothing Is Easy. That song is incredible. There's an amazing live versions they do of it it's one of my favorite songs to watch them play live on YouTube. It's really, really cool. Nothing Is Easy is great. We Used to Know. Reasons for Waiting is beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful song. Back to the Family is great. I say this, I've said this in a few videos before. I don't know why I'm naming tracks. I love pretty much everything on here. There's a cover of Bore, I don't know how to say it, I'm sorry. Which is an old classical song. And the name is escaping me of who made it. I don't think it was Bach. Sorry. I'm just now learning more about classical music, and I know Bore is done by like one of the old classical masters. I don't remember who it is off the top of my head right now. I'm sorry. But I know it's a cover of that, and it's completely like a new like kind of like groovier version of it that they made. It's really, really cool. Really, really great album. You should check it out. Although I will say it's not completely reflective of what Tull would become. Although it's definitely a stepping stone to what kind of stuff they would be doing later. So that's that. The next album we'll be talking about is the album right after this one, Benefit, which came out in 1970. And out of the 3 original Tull albums, this is the best to me, easily the best one out of the original. I'm pretty sure everybody that was in this band, Ian Anderson, Glenn Cornick, Clive Bunker, and Martin Barr. Other than Martin, I think all the guys at this point had been a part of the band, and I think this was the last album they were all on together, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, I probably should start doing more research before I start doing these videos. Yes, that is, I believe, correct. Anyway, sorry, moving on. Benefit is, I would say, their first out-and-out prog album. Not everything on here is like a proggy song, but I would say for the most part, most of what would become their major sound was really reflected on this album. And this is the only copy I have. For Christmas this year, I had asked some people for this, and I got it. I got the 50th anniversary deluxe enhanced edition of Benefit, and I was really excited about this. This is they've been doing a lot of anniversary, just enhanced deluxe editions of albums that they came out with. A lot of the real classics are hard to get a hold of, but this is the only one I have at the moment. I had the one for another one of their albums called A. They called it the a la mode edition. And the reason why I don't have that one anymore, sorry, this is kind of a tangent. I'll get back to talking about this album in a minute. This felt like I should explain myself as someone who's a collector. When I'm collecting stuff, I want to make sure I'm getting stuff that I know I'm going to spin. And I felt like when I got that A pressing, and I like A. I think it's an alright album. It's not bad. But I don't think I like it enough to have this major enhanced deluxe edition where there's like all these different versions of the songs. And I think about, at this point, some of the live stuff was starting to suffer because Ian's voice had been suffering at this point, and I'll get into that more when I talk about another album in this pile. But I sold it because I felt like I knew I wasn't going to listen to that one as much, but this 100% I'm going to listen to a lot. I'm just going to hold up both. Yay, I have both. But yeah, Benefit is an album where I feel like Tull was really coming into their own. So kind of what I'm trying to get to here. Every song is amazing on this album. If I had to rank my top 5 Tull albums, this would be on it. And I know I said this is one of my favorites, but I'm going to be real with you. Most Tull albums, especially from like the 70s, are one of my favorites. I just love this band so much. But top 5 Tull albums, this is on there somewhere. I might do a top 5 Tull albums one day on this show. I don't know. But my favorite song on here is, if it's not To Cry You a Song, it's probably Inside, weirdly enough. And I know some people probably aren't crazy about that one in particular. I don't think Ian's a big fan of this. There's a thing in the enhanced edition. There's a book in the middle, it's all in here that kind of and there's a bunch of different chapters that all the band members are talking about recording the album, and there's a lot of talk about, because it was remixed by Steven Wilson from Porcupine Tree and his own solo stuff. And if you're watching a show about prog, you should probably know who Steven Wilson is. But he talks about how the remixing process went. Regardless, the band was in top form on this. Everybody in the band at this point was. But I love the sounds of so many songs on here. There's a lot of songs on here that they never play live, like Nothing to Say, from Michael Collins' Jeffrey and Me, which is a gorgeous song. I love that song. A Time for Everything, they played back then, but I don't know if they play much of today. One of their biggest hits in the U.S. at that time was Teacher. Which I don't think that wasn't a song that broke them in the U.S. I don't think, but it was a big one for them. Again, man, just absolutely incredible album from front to back. For me, when it comes to starting with Tull, if you want to go back and start early and really get a sense for where their sound was, Benefit. I love Benefit, and I think you'll love Benefit too. And some people consider it their most riffy album too. Like, one thing about Tull that a lot of people will mention is they're kind of, in some ways, they can be considered like a proto-metal band, because they have some heavy stuff back then. And I think To Cry You a Song on Benefit is one of the heaviest songs they ever did, if not the heaviest. That can be debated, but it's a very heavy song from them. And it's just a great testament to how versatile they were. They could do really beautiful folk music. They could do just really technical prog, and they could do just really heavy, proto-metal songs. Really, really cool stuff. Now we're going to be talking about the album that actually got me into Jethro Tull. There's another video I'm planning on doing on the PROGBOX at some point, where I talk about the 5 albums that got me into prog. And this is one of them for sure, Aqualung. Aqualung is, at this point, it's not my favorite Jethro Tull album anymore, but for a period of time it was. I'd say this album definitely formed who I was listening to music. Let me restart. definitely formed a lot of my music tastes post high school. Once I got out of high school, I started really delving into a lot of stuff I hadn't heard before, and I've always liked this album cover. I'd seen it in magazines or web lists or stuff like that, and I really, really liked how this looked. I liked what was being said about it, and I was like, that sounds really interesting. I want to give it a shot. Little did I know it was kind of everything I was looking for in music at that time, and it just completely bowled me over. I listened to this album nonstop after I heard it for the first time. It pretty much has everything that you had heard up to this point, but it was so dialed in and so fine-tuned that it was absolutely incredible. And I know some people might not consider this an out-and-out prog album. It's more of a hard rock, folk rock album, but I think there's just enough in there to give it that prog rock edge. There's just enough technicality. There's just enough on the... I know Ian Anderson wouldn't agree that this is a concept album, and all in all, it's not. There's a lot of thematic ties to the songs, but I'm going to go with him on this one. It's not really a concept album, but there are conceptual songs on here, where side one is called Aqualung, and the first two tracks mention this character who's a homeless man who goes by Aqualung. And then the side two is called My God, and it's kind of talking about a lot of different things, really, when it pertains to Christianity and the organized religion that he saw at the time, and his kind of views on that. And it's I don't know, it's really cool. It talks about some topics that you really wouldn't hear too much of back then, and it's got its own thing going on. Aqualung isn't like a lot of other albums, and to be honest, I'm pretty sure a lot of people who don't like prog love Aqualung. It's completely set apart in its own area in the world of prog, in the world of music in general. Like, I feel like you don't hear too many albums like this, and man, I don't know, it's completely its own thing. This is another one. I'm not even going to start naming tracks off of this one. Like, I like that track, I like that track. Every track on here is an absolute classic. 10 out of 10 track. This is a 10 out of 10 album. 100%. Go listen to this. It's an absolutely incredible album. Although I will say, my favorite song on it constantly changes. It started out as the lead track, Aqualung, and then it was Cross-Eyed Mary. Then it was Locomotive Breath. And honestly, at this point, I don't even know anymore what my favorite song is on here because I love them all so much. Certified classic. Amazing album in the genre of prog and music in general. Go check it out. All right. So, I just realized something. I have not... Being that this is a show that also has a little bit of a focus on the vinyl, I haven't really been opening the vinyl. So that one doesn't have a gatefold, so that's easy. You think I know my albums a little bit better, but I really don't. I know if people watch this, they're going to be like, why don't you edit your videos? Because I'm lazy. I'm lazy. But I will show the Enhanced Edition version, so I believe, yeah, the first two discs, there is, the first disc is the original album that's remixed by Steven Wilson, and then disc 2 is a bunch of associated recordings and the mono single mixes. So there's a lot of the same track over and over again with different mixes. Again, if you're a hyper fan and you're a really big fan of the technical side, these are really, really cool to get, and I recommend them before they go out of print because they are insane when they do go out of print. I think Aqualung's goes for like $200 now. It's ridiculous. But anyway, and then the other two discs, disc 3 and disc 4, are two different live sets, and one is a actually no, these are both one is remixed by Steven Wilson. The other one is just a mono mix taken from the desk from that show. Disc 3 is live at Tanglewood in 1970. The other one is live in Chicago in 1970. And there's two more discs in here. There's 2 DVDs as well, along with the 4 CDs that you get with this. The first DVD is a 2013 remix of the album, and it's got, the surround sound. They added 5 extra tracks. It's in Dolby AC 5.1 surround and all that stuff. A lot of stuff going on here. It's a lot. But then the second DVD is the Tanglewood concert that's on disc 3, but you actually get video with it, and Steven Wilson did an audio remix of that as well. Really cool. I've already spun all the discs except for the one that's just the remix of the album, because I don't really have surround sound yet. I did just get some. I just have to actually put it in. And I'll probably check that out at some point as well. Okay, and then the last thing is the gatefold for Aqualung. Really, really cool. Really awesome artwork. Yeah. Awesome stuff. Here's the back of the album as well. And the back of Benefit. Wonderful glare. I'm not taking it out of the plastic again. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's what that looks like. Anyway, sorry about that. Just want to make sure I did that, because what reminded me of that was the next album coming up after Aqualung was Thick as a Brick. What a lot of people believe to be their best album. What a lot of people rank as one of the greatest prog albums ever made in history of the genre. And it's hard to disagree. Thick as a Brick is incredible all the way through. And the reason why it reminded me that I needed to show the gatefolds on those was because the gatefold on this one is absolutely freaking bonkers. It's a fake newspaper that they made, because the album is a kind of a parody. It's a satire of prog in and of itself. Everybody, Ian Anderson was upset that everybody was calling Aqualung a concept album when he himself didn't believe it was one. So he was like, you know what? I'm going to make the mother of all prog concept albums. And so he did. But funnily enough, nobody got the joke. And there's a lot of very, very British Monty Python-esque humor on this entire album, both visually and auditory. I'm terrible with words. I apologize if that's the wrong use of that. But yes, this album, basically the story is this kid here, Gerald Bostock. He was Ian said that the music was based off a poem written by Gerald when there was no Gerald Bostock. It was all written by Ian himself. And it's a very clever, very well done satire of prog. So much so that it's considered one of the greatest in the history of the genre. And like I said, it's hard to disagree. I'd say nowadays, I actually, again, top 5 Tull albums, this is going to be on it for me. It's an incredible album. Front to back, one 40 plus minute song that stretches off for 2 sides. I believe the first, the Really Don't Mind, which is the beginning part of side 1. It's that became a really big song in the U.S., I believe, back in the day. I think it hit number 1 on the Billboard or something. The album itself hit number 1 on the Billboard, which is crazy to think about for an album that's for a one song that's 40 minutes, but it's split across so well that it sounds like a bunch of different songs. In fact, nowadays I listen to the Steven Wilson remix where it split the tracks up a lot of the time now, because I love the way that one sounds. I like the fact that I can skip to my favorite parts of the track if I'm really in the mood to hear that specific part, or if I hear a part and I'm like, oh man, I want to go back and listen to that again. I can just do that with a click of a button. It's really nice. I like having that. Another thing I got to mention is that all the albums I've talked about so far are a year apart from one another. So they were just hammering them out year after year after year after year, and they just got better and better and better and better and better. Nowadays, I actually it's hard. I feel like I flip-flop between liking this or Aqualung more. But I feel like I go back to Thick as a Brick more nowadays, because just so much of it speaks specifically to my tastes now. And like I said, it's got everything you want. It's the folk stuff. It's the hard rock. But they go full tilt on the prog side of things. It's extremely technical. It's a whirlwind of sound at points. And everything splices together so well and makes it that one big cohesive track. And, you know, the classical influence. One extremely long song. But yeah, like I said, really, really cool pressing. One of the coolest vinyl, to me ever, one of the coolest vinyl packagings of all time. like I said, I mean, I'm not kidding. This isn't it either. Like, this is a full newspaper. It's got, like, all these fake articles, and I'm trying to show the actual paper itself. But yeah, it just goes for a while. You can just look at this forever while you're listening to the album. Awesome idea. Really cool execution. Can't say enough good things about this album. Absolutely incredible. Another one you should absolutely go check out. So, after Thick as a Brick, I believe that Ian and the band could see that, you know, hey, they had a winning formula with Thick as a Brick, so they decided to do not a satire, but actually, you know, for real, make one long song again, and they released a Passion Play. And I want to get another copy of this because it's kind of beat up, but yeah, a Passion Play is yet another really long, like 40 plus minute song. I can't remember if this is shorter. I've actually only listened to this twice. It's been a minute since I heard it last. And I don't like it as much as Thick as a Brick, and a lot of people actually really don't like it. This album was panned up and down critically, and commercially it was a failure. I'm pretty sure this album kind of was a death knell for them for a minute. It was it was a hard sell, to say the least. For some reason, it didn't work out as well for them on this album than it did on the other. Now, to me, I will also say that, I don't know if it's because I'm just a huge fan or whatever, but I've been seeing a lot of people kind of reevaluating it through the years. I think on its own merits, it's pretty great. It's a lot quirkier. It's a lot weirder than Thick as a Brick is. I mean, there's one track that's just like almost like a storybook narration, and they're kind of just going wild on that track musically, but I digress. It's a very wild listen from front to back. I'll put it to you that way. It's different, and there's actually there's another version of this album out there. The Chateau. It's the Chateau something sessions. I don't remember what it's called, but I've heard some of it, and it's bar none the heaviest album. That version of a Passion Play is the heaviest album they've ever would have put out if they released it in that state. And they had the album after this one. I actually don't have War Child. It's so I know some of the tracks that were going to be on that version of Passion Play ended up being on that, particularly what's the song? Skating Away on the Thin Ice of a New Day which is another one of their songs that were kind of big back in the day, was on that version. But again, I digress. Passion Play, I think, it's a unique album. It's a different listen for even Jethro Tull's discography when they're already pretty unique enough compared to their contemporaries. But I recommend you give it a listen. Check it out. Definitely don't go here first. You'll be a bit put off if you haven't heard any kind of Jethro Tull stuff first. But if you liked Thick as a Brick and you were like, I want this to be a little bit crazier, then go to a Passion Play. It's pretty wild. Again, before I forget, here's a gatefold, little ticket there, and then a ballet dancer on the back. So, like I said, I don't have War Child. It's one of the albums I don't have yet. I want to get it. I will get it at some point. Again, there are some albums in this discography that I don't like, but I plan on having all of them because I know I will spin all of them because I love Jethro Tull that much. But War Child's an album that you know what? I should wait to talk about War Child when I actually get it, but I don't think it's a bad album. That's not why I don't have it. It's just there are other albums that I wanted more first. So the next album on here that I have is the album that came after War Child in 1974. We go to 1975 because we're still going album a year here. Minstrel in the Gallery, which, if you're someone who doesn't like Passion Play or War Child, you would consider this a return to form, I think. Minstrel in the Gallery is pretty well loved by the fan base and prog fans alike, whatever. It's kind of a good return to form for them. Really large focus on the folk and hard rock aspects of their sound. The title track, Minstrel in the Gallery, is one of the best Jethro Tull songs of all time. Top 3 for me. Incredible track. Absolutely incredible track. One White Duck is a very, very if you have an idea kind of what the track is about, It's a very kind of depressing, very sad song, but so beautifully sad at the same time. I really, really love that track. One of my favorite, just straight acoustic songs. And one thing I want to mention too, real quick, I didn't really talk about sections when it came to Passion Play and Thick as a Brick. It's because it's one song, and there's a lot to talk about there. So again, I just recommend you go check those out for yourself because I mean, they're both incredible albums to me. Uh, but Minstrel in the Gallery has, just some of their coolest tracks ever. Cold Wind to Valhalla has that kind of. I mean, it sounds exactly like what you would expect it to sound like with a name like that. Almost sounds like Charging into Battle. Like it's a really really cool, really cool track. But yeah, like I said, it's definitely if you don't like the two albums that precede this one, or even if you do like those albums. I mean, I would say this is definitely a step above both of them. Minstrel in the Gallery is incredible. Really, really great album, front to back. But highly, highly, highly recommend if you hear anything from this album, listen to the title track. It is just an absolutely mind-blowing track. Perfect fusion of folk, prog, and hard rock. Just and 1 second, 1 second really, really cool and folky, and then the next minute just absolutely driving and powerful. Awesome track, awesome album all the way through. Great stuff. So, after Minstrel in the Gallery, there was an album called Too Old to Rock and Roll. I don't have that one either. It came out in 1976. It's another one that not a lot of people are super crazy about. It's another one that I like, though, and I will get at some point. That's actually the next one I'm planning on getting. I should probably get War Child first, I know, but I really want Too Old to Rock and Roll. I actually really like that album. Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die, excuse me, that's the name of the album. But I do have the one after that, which I think at the moment, a tie, of course, it's always a tie. It's a tie between this album and one more for my favorite Tull album at the moment. I don't know what it is about this specific sound from them that I love so much, but this is the stuff I really, really enjoy from them. And that is Songs from the Wood, the album that came out in 1977 after Too Old to Rock and Roll. So, like I said, some people might consider Minstrel in the Gallery return to form. Some people consider this the true return to the greatest of Tull. And again, I don't share that sentiment, but I definitely see it as, like I said, I tie it up there with one more record as my favorite Tull record ever. It's quite simply like some of Ian Anderson's best songwriting. I just don't know what it is about this album that hits me so well. It's the first in what they call a folk rock trilogy, which I'm not 100% sure why, honestly. Like, it's got a little bit more folky elements, I guess, compared to the stuff that came before it, but there was plenty of folk on the other albums. But I guess because there's such a heavy emphasis on, like, natural instrumentation, and, I mean, look at this album cover. You can kind of tell that being Ian Anderson right there. Just, like, there's a big focus on, like, the wilderness and stuff like that, and the folk rock trilogy in different aspects, but this one kind of has a focus on like folk tales, like mythology kind of. Mythology might not be the right word, but like fables and stuff like that. Like there's a focus on like fictional woodland stuff, and that's all over the place on here, especially on songs like Jack and the Green or The Whistler, Velvet Green. There's even a Christmas song on here, which is one of my favorite songs to listen to every Christmas, Ring Out Solstice Bells. Every Christmas that song is getting wore out, and my wife probably gets so tired of constantly hearing it, but man, it's one of my favorites to listen to during that time of year. Again, another one where it's like, it doesn't really make it. It's another one that has one of those things where like the title track is just an absolute testament to how amazing they are. Songs from the Wood is in another one of the top 5 songs from Jethro Tull. Absolutely adore it. I adore Velvet Green a lot too. That song is incredible as well. I mean, again, this is another one where I don't really need to name tracks. Every song is incredible. I love how catchy Cup of Wonder is. There's nothing else that really needs to be said. Incredible album. And if you want your prog to have a little bit more on the acoustic side, even though it's not like super folky, it's just like prog with a focus on acoustic instruments. Can't go wrong with Songs of Wood. You just can't. So the final album I'll be talking about today will be the other album that I consider to be in a tie right now for my favorite Tull album, which, and I know some people might be like, what, when I say it, but it's Heavy Horses, man. I love, love, love Heavy Horses. I might love it more than Songs from Wood. I just can't decide, because every time I talk about them, I'm just sitting here like, kind of like, oh, do I like that one more? Do I? I just don't know. At this point, Ian Anderson was actually having vocal problems. He had I want to say it was lymphoma. Could be wrong about that. But he basically had something that was messing with his vocal cords, and it was making it hard for him to sing. So he had this rasp to his voice. Honestly, though, I kind of consider that a strength. I loved the rasp to his voice on these songs. And like I said, this is part two in the three-part folk trilogy that everybody likes to call it. And this has kind of got more of a realistic focus on like nature and the wilderness and things like that. Because I mean, he had he still has it, but he has a huge plot of farmland that he's very serious about farming and nature and stuff like that. I mean, he's got a whole song dedicated to how he feels like, you know, on this album that's dedicated to the horse, the animal of the horse, which is the title track, called Heavy Horses. Another testament to how amazing they are. All their title tracks just tend to be like insanely good, like the standout songs on every album. But man, I mean, again, this is another one where I could just, which is my favorite. I don't know. I adore Acres Wild. I adore One Brown Mouse. Oh my gosh, One Brown Mouse. That is one of my favorite of their more mellow tracks, of their more acoustic, folky tracks. Love that song to death. Journeyman's kind of got like a little bit of a groove to it. It's a little bit funkier compared to some of their stuff, if you could imagine. But man, like I said, I've been talking about with a friend of mine who also really likes Heavy Horses. He was saying, you know, I've always heard some people like kind of diss this album, and I don't get it. I think it's I would consider it their last true 10 out of 10, honestly. I love everything about this album. It's a fantastic, fantastic listen. There's the back of it. There's all the guys. But yeah, I love Heavy Horses. I have nothing bad to say about it. I hate, for a long time, I would always, you know, kind of listen to what a lot of people, I would hear from a lot of people, and some of the stuff I would hear was like, oh, this isn't as good as this, or this isn't as good as this, and, you know, Heavy Horses, one of those albums, was like, oh, it's alright, or something like that. But when I heard it, man, I was blown away. I listened to it, and I listened to it right afterwards again. And I was just, like I said, taken aback by it. Absolutely adore it. Fantastic album. Like I said, in tie right now to be my favorite in their discography at the moment. And that is going to do it. That is all the albums I have currently from Jethro Tull. And can't wait to get more. I'm always looking for more. And really excited about being able to talk about more in the future. But this is part one of my Jethro Tull showcase. And yeah, guys, I really hope you enjoyed it. Hey, put down in the comments what your favorite Jethro Tull album is, what your favorite Jethro Tull song is. Get mad at me for liking Heavy Horses as much as I do, or get mad at me for the gaps I have in the discography. But yeah, you guys have a fantastic day, and especially when it comes to Jethro Tull. Happy listening.